There are some disappearances that begin with chaos, sirens, urgency, people moving quickly as something unfolds in real time. This isn't one of those. This story begins quietly, in the kind of stillness that usually means nothing is wrong. It was the middle of the night, inside a home where everyone else was asleep, and there were no immediate signs that anything unusual had happened. No forced entry, no disturbance that drew attention. Just a 15-year-old boy who got up, walked out of his house, and was later reported missing. And what makes this case so difficult to understand is that even now, there is no confirmed explanation for why he left in the first place. This case takes place in Hendersonville, Tennessee, a suburban area just outside of Nashville, where daily life tends to follow a steady rhythm. Quiet neighborhoods, familiar streets, and routines that don't often change. It's the kind of place where something like this feels immediately out of place. Inside one of those homes was Sebastian Rogers. Based on publicly available information, his life was structured around routine and consistency. He was not widely described as someone who regularly left home unexpectedly, especially in the middle of the night, which is part of what made this situation so concerning. Sebastian has been publicly described as being on the autism spectrum, which can be an important piece of context in understanding behavior, depending on the individual. For some people, routine provides stability, and unexpected changes or internal stress can feel overwhelming in ways that are not always visible externally. In certain situations, a person may respond by withdrawing or removing themselves from that environment. That does not provide a definitive explanation for what happened here, but it is one of several contextual factors that investigators may consider when trying to understand why someone might leave without a clear plan or destination. According to publicly available reports, the night began without any widely confirmed indication of a significant disruption. It appeared to be a normal evening that transitioned into a normal night, with members of the household going to sleep. At some point after midnight, Sebastian got up. There is no publicly confirmed moment where someone directly observed him leaving, and no clear indication that any unusual things were heard at the time. However, investigators later determined that he exited the home on foot during those early morning hours. Reports indicate that he did not take a phone or any obvious supplies with him, and there has been no confirmed destination identified. From that point forward, there have been no publicly confirmed sightings of him. As the morning progressed, it became increasingly clear that something was not right. In many situations, there is an initial period where people expect that someone who left may return shortly. But as time passed, and that didn't happen, concern escalated into urgency. Based on what has been reported, this type of behavior was not considered typical, which contributed to the rapid response that followed. The investigation and search efforts began quickly once he was reported missing. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office led the response, working alongside the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Search teams conducted organized efforts across the surrounding areas, including neighborhoods, wooded terrain, and nearby open spaces. K-9 units were used in an attempt to track scent from the home, and aerial resources such as drones were deployed to assist in covering larger or more difficult areas. Volunteers also participated, expanding the reach of the search. Despite those efforts, there have been no publicly confirmed discovery that clearly establishes where he went after leaving the home. One of the most challenging aspects of this case is the absence of a clear, traceable path. In many investigations, even limited physical evidence or confirmed sightings can help establish direction. In this situation, based on available information, that type of clarity has not emerged. Investigators have also worked to reconstruct the timeline using available information. This typically involves identifying who last saw the individual, confirming the approximate time they were last known to be inside their home, and reviewing any potential sources of additional information, such as nearby surveillance or environmental factors. The goal is to better understand both what led up to the departure and what may have occurred immediately afterward. However, when key moments are not directly observed or recorded, gaps can remain. As the case received public attention, interviews and statements from those close to the situation were shared in media coverage. In reviewing publicly available interviews, some observers have noted that certain details have been described differently over time or clarified as additional information became available. It's important to approach that carefully. Variations in how events are described do not necessarily indicate anything improper. Memory can be affected by stress, and details can be communicated differently across multiple conversations. At the same time, in cases where there are no clear answers, even small differences can draw attention and contribute to ongoing questions. Law enforcement has continued to treat this as an active investigation. As is common on ongoing cases, officials have been measured in the amount of information released publicly. This approach is often used to protect the integrity of the investigation, avoid interfering with potential leads, and to ensure that any new information can be properly evaluated. From the outside, this can sometimes create a sense that there are more questions than answers, but it does not mean that the investigative work has stopped. As of now, based on publicly available information, there have been no confirmed sightings of Sebastian after he left the home, and no publicly confirmed explanation that accounts for what happened. The timeline reaches a point where the available details end, and beyond that, there are still unanswered questions. And that's what makes this case so difficult to process. Everything leads back to a single moment, a quiet house in the middle of the night, and a decision that does not yet have a clear explanation. A 15-year-old boy leaves his home, and from that point forward, the timeline becomes uncertain. If you have any information related to the disappearance of Sebastian Rogers, you're encouraged to contact the Sumner County Sheriff's Office or the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-TBI-FIND. Even a small detail could be important as the investigation continues.